Welcome to the Car Guys, and this week I am here at 4 Star Classics, one of my favourite boutique car dealers specialising in very special automobiles. And the reason? Well, I have a self-confessed love of cars from the 90s, and this week I'm going to take you through 10 90s cars that if I found the right example, I would buy in a heartbeat. And you know me, that's not an empty promise. I am that sort of impetuous, frivolous, nostalgic car buyer. So you could say I am currently standing in a very tempting and very dangerous place. These are the 10 90s cars I would buy in a heartbeat. And thank you for allowing me to entertain you. Why do I love 90s cars so much? Good question and a simple answer. I got my driving license in 1990 and it was the start of my working life. My first car, the time I moved away from home, and I got seriously interested in cars. Throughout the following decade, I consumed car magazines, notably EMAP's Car and BBC's Top Gear, and I dreamt of owning the subjects of those front covers and road tests. In my mind, I owned an Escort Cosworth, a Mazda RX7, a Honda NSX, a Lamborghini Diablo. In my actual garage, though, was a Vauxhall Astra. But as I keep telling many of you, never stop dreaming, never stop working hard, take responsibility for your own future, and make your dreams happen. But above all, keep going. And believe me, you'll do it. You'll achieve your dreams. Which is how I can now look at all these cars from the 90s that I lusted after and actually own some of them. Are they technically better than the cars of today? No, but they offer many advantages that the cars of today cannot hope to compete with. They're lighter, they're noisier and rawer, they've got less digital intervention, they're more individually designed. And perhaps the most important for car guys of a certain age, they are time machines. They take us back to a time when we were younger, freer, more hopeful, before the weight of the world crushed our spirits. So this week's episode is dedicated to that feeling. I'm going to take you through the 10 90s cars that I would buy in a heartbeat. And before you fill my DMs with candidates, it doesn't mean any old ratty pile of horseshit that just so happens to have been made in the 90s. To make me go properly all week at the wallet, the examples of the models that I'm about to reveal have to be in the right colour, condition, and mileage. First of all then, the Toyota Supra Turbo. Now many people preferred the sleeker, but I was always team Supra. Even the chunky 3rd gen A70 was not too bad, but for me the 4th gen A80 was the one that I lusted after. It was of course featured in the 3DO game Need for Speed, the very first one, and it was made from 1994 until 1998. It had a 3-litre turbocharged engine that gave you 276 brake horsepower, and it also had a non-turbo 220 brake horsepower version, which no one really liked very much. That turbo model had a 6-speed gearbox for the first time, but you really need to give me a black turbo model with tan leather, and I will literally melt with excitement. Many were customised and have therefore been a bit ruined, but one unmolested black with tan model did come up for auction quite recently, and I completely missed it. I missed out on my dream Toyota Supra. There will be one in the Car Guys garage at some point in the future, I have no doubt, because I am obsessed with this car. Number 2 on my list is the Fiat Coupe. Yes, I know I go on about this. It was made between 1993 and 2000. Interestingly, the design of the Fiat Coupe was pitched out. 2 main contenders vied for it. Chris Bangle, who worked at Fiat at the time, and Pininfarina. And somewhat surprisingly, Chris Bangle won. Remember, this is pre-BMW Chris Bangle, before he ruined the 7 Series and many other BMWs as well. But he actually won the design competition and the Fiat Coupe was his. But you know what Pininfarina did? They took the design that they came up with, and that later became the Peugeot 406. I came extremely close to buying one of these in the 90s, in period. It was the special edition one, the black with the red interior, which looked not unlike Michael Jackson's jacket. Now you can get the Fiat Coupe in this stunning blue color, and it also looks incredible in yellow. 0 to 60 is 6.5 seconds, and it can do 149 miles an hour. It was a total rocket ship. It looks like nothing else. It's got a painted body color dashboard, and I really like them. There is an extreme chance that if I find the right one, I might get one. Next up is another car that I almost bought in the 90s as well. It is, of course, the swoopy third generation FD3S Mazda RX7, the twin turbocharged rotary engined pocket rocket, which is very much, if you've ever driven one, just like a Japanese 911. It was made from 1991 to 1997, and it featured a 250 to 276 brake horsepower engine. And officially, only 210 were sold in the UK. I had no idea it was that few. There are, of course, now lots of imports, and I test drove and nearly bought an early green one. But then, quite recently, I saw this blue one at DK Engineering. It was a Supercar Driver event. One of the members of Supercar Driver had brought it, and I fell in love. If you ever want to sell this car, sir, I am the buyer. It is perfect. I know they are plagued with problems because of that rotary engine, but if you can find a good one. Mwah. And now we have the humble Mazda MX5 Mark I, the original smooth shape. It was made from 1989 until 1997 in various different forms. It had a 1.6 engine that was later upgraded to a 1.8. It's an inline-4 naturally aspirated engine that just loves to rev, and I almost bought one of these in the 90s. In fact, it was a red car that had come down from Manchester, and the reason why I didn't buy it is because it looked like someone had stabbed a knife into the rear screen. MX-5s are just fantastic little things, so nippy, so agile, you can just jump in, manual hood as well, you just literally grab hold of it, throw it backwards, and you're suddenly in the open air. It's just a very sweet, lovely little two-seater roadster, based of course on old 60s British cars. Now most of these cars are of course in red, but for me, the one I've always wanted is this Mariner Blue. I absolutely love this color, very similar to the color that you can get the Fiat Coupe in. But if I can find an unmolested, low mileage Mariner Blue Mark I MX5, come to Papa. The problem with MX-5s is most of them have got very cheap over the years. They've therefore not been looked after properly. They've been ravaged, they've been customized, and it's therefore now extremely hard to find a good one. But I cannot help but love that original car. Now there isn't actually an example of the next car on my list here at 4-Star Classics, but I am standing in the Porsche section. I've got a 997 and a 996 here, but the one I'm really interested in is a car that I own a version of, but just not this version. The one I really want, if I'm being honest, is the Porsche 911 993 Turbo S. Now my Carrera 4S does look like a turbo, but you cannot beat that incredible 993 turbo shape, and the Turbo S is the pinnacle. They only made the 993 from 1994 until 1998. It is, of course, the last air-cooled 911, but as a result, it's robust, the build quality is high, it's nippy, it's small, and it still has that organic, living 911 feel that you just don't really get from the 996 onwards. It feels like a classic 911, it still does, but of course the turbo has serious grunt and four-wheel drive, so it can actually deploy that power onto the road. The 993 Turbo S has got a 3.6 litre twin-turbo flat-six engine. It's all-wheel drive, and that delivers 400 brake horsepower. Now, they only made the Turbo S in the last 2 years of production of the 993, but it was the granddaddy of the line. 0 to 60, 3.6 seconds, and it could do 184 miles an hour. But it is the shape, it's the speed, it's the sure-footedness that really drives me into this car. And now a car that I absolutely had to have, and actually I do own one right now. It's the Honda NSX, but I don't own the NSX-R, the sweeter, high-performance special version of it. I haven't got one of those, and some would say that given the skyrocketing prices of these cars, maybe I never will. But there is something so evocative about the NSX-R in white with that special gear knob and little red touches. This is a car that I am obsessed with. The NSX itself was made from 1990 right the way up to 2005. NSX, incidentally, stands for New Sports Car Experimental. Bet you didn't know that. It features a 3-litre V6 engine with variable valve timing and lift electronic control. It's an all aluminium body, and it came in auto and manual. Manual, of course, the most favoured now. It also came in 2 different body types, the Coupe and the Targa. The NSX was facelifted in 2002, and in fact, there was an entirely new car in 2016. This, unfortunately, didn't really set the world alight, but if you want me to feature it on the channel, write it in the comments. And now we come to one of the all-time great 90s cars. Sadly, this isn't one of them, but the one I'm talking about is the Mercedes W124 500e. Now, this was made between 1990 and 1995. It was a collaboration between Porsche and Mercedes. It featured a 5-litre V8 engine, and it could do 0 to 60 in 6 seconds. But the thing that makes it really special is the stance of the thing. It sits on the road perfectly. It's such a mean, aggressive looking car. It looks wider, more squat, and it's just the ultimate badass Mercedes. And it is, of course, a true Q car because no one knows what they are, no one knows what they can do, no one realizes what's underneath the bonnet and exactly how quickly it can get off from the light. I absolutely adore the 500e. And the last time I saw one of these in the flesh was at a dealer in Lymington. So I wonder if they've still got it. Now we're talking though. Look at that. It is, of course, the Ford Escort RS Cosworth, and this one is the big wing one. It's the one that you want, that first generation. This one's actually in a beautiful plum colour, which I don't think I've actually seen before. Also, this car's just been sold just before I got here, which is a shame. The Ford Escort RS Cosworth was made between 1992 and 1996. It was, of course, a homologation for Group A rallying, and that meant that there were 2,500 of these big wing whale tail cars made to satisfy that requirement. It features a 2-litre Cosworth YBT turbocharged inline 4. It delivers 224 brake horsepower, and 0 to 60 came in 5.7 seconds. But because it's 4-wheel drive, this thing is an absolute demon on B roads. It is a proper mile muncher, and at the time there were few things that could keep up with it. I've always loved the shape of them. I always love a fast Ford, and this to me, at some point, well, I've definitely got to get behind the wheel and find out actually if I do actually like it, because I've never driven one of these before. But if I do like it, I might just have to have one. And the penultimate car on my 90s cars I would buy in a heartbeat is this, the Nissan 300 ZX. Yes, it's another Japanese car. Yes, it's an absolute monster. I love it. And this is the 4th generation of what in Japan is called the Fair Lady, and it's codenamed Z32. It was made from 1989 to the year 2000, and it features a 3-litre V6 with a choice of turbo or naturally aspirated engine. What I particularly like about it is its muscular, smooth shape. It looks like an absolute animal. It's a real raging monster, this. And did you know that the headlights from a 300 ZX were actually used for the facelifted Lamborghini Diablo? Well, you do now. 0 to 60 was 5.5 seconds, which is pretty reasonable for the time, but I just loved the aggressive stance of this car, and I have never driven one, but I have a real desire for one. And the final car on my list is a relative of this. It is, of course, the Subaru Impreza 22B. This was built between March and August 1998 to celebrate Subaru's 40th anniversary and third consecutive World Rally Championship. They only made 400 for Japan and they sold out in less than an hour, and export markets got just 24 cars. The 16 cars for the UK market were modified by ProDrive, but more now exist because they've been imported. The 22B features a 2.2 litre, 276 brake horsepower turbocharged engine. It came in a unique blue, it was a wide body, and it weighed 1,270 kilograms. And if you want to know where the name came from, and I certainly did, 22B is actually hexadecimal code for 555, the main sponsor of Subaru's World Rally Championship from 1993 until 2004. Out of all the Subaru Imprezas that have ever been made, I think the 22B is the ultimate. Although a P1 does come close. And incidentally, round about the time this video goes live, they are auctioning Colin McRae's own personal car. So there you are, my top 10 90s cars that I would buy in a heartbeat. You may agree, you may disagree. Frankly, I don't much care. But do feel free to congratulate or abuse me in the comments and suggest others that I may have forgotten. Honourable mentions, well, the list could just go on, and thank you all for sending me suggestions on YouTube and Instagram. It was joyous to hear your 90s favourites and how well they chimed with my own. But in no particular order, honourable mentions go to the Ferrari 355, not on the list, mainly because I already own one, but it easily could have done. The BMW E34 M5 Touring, the BMW E36 M3, BMW 740 or 750, but of course I do own one of those as well. The Saab 900 Turbo, Bentley Continental T, Audi RS2, I've always fancied one of those, Lexus LS 400, I almost bought one last week, the Lamborghini Diablo still makes me go weak at the knees whenever I see one. The Lotus Carlton, of course, almost had but never actually owned. And finally, of course, the mighty Lancia Delta Integrale. For me, preferably the Evo 2, and doesn't it look fantastic in yellow? One of these should really be in the Car Guys garage, and it is, some would say, an absolute crime that it hasn't happened yet. Thank you for watching this episode on the 10 90s cars I would buy in a heartbeat here at 4-Star Classics. If you haven't checked out the 4-Star Classics website, please do. There are many gems here. And also, why not pop down and check out some of the stock that they've got here. You will not regret it. There are always some classic and very hard to get 80s and 90s cars within these walls. If you like what we're doing in the Car Guys, please subscribe, leave comments and likes. There'll be another episode next week.